Well, I'm back where I ended my season last year. I've had this, if you want to call it a Treecoy, in here for a few years. I actually cemented it in. You could reference back to a couple episodes where some guys have talked about different ways to make this. I actually have it where I can just screw in new limbs every year. That way I have fresh scrape limbs for deer to use from year to year. But that's not really what I'm wanting to talk about. What I'm wanting to talk about is how to enhance this spot on your food plot. And what I've done this year is I have plot screen, probably like a 10 to 15 yards around the whole plot. And what that does is that pretty much, there's no other limbs around the food plot for these deer to use as a scrape. So not only is there are no other limbs, but my only limb for them to use a scrape on this food plot is right in front of my stand. And that's just one way you can really enhance one of these spots to have them come in front of your tree stand, especially when your food plot is as big as this one. I've had my eye on a tree that I've always wanted to hang a stand in, but it just never made sense the way the deer moved on this food plot until I got this plot screen in. I'm going to show you how I made it work. Well, after previous sets in the last few years in the stand I just talked about, I noticed that a lot of deer come into this food plot off of this hillside. And I'm actually up in the new stand I put this year, and before the deer would enter probably 80 to 100 yards just down the food plot edge. And what I've done is by having this plot screen around this food plot, deer will use the least amount of resistance. So if I make a trail for them that makes it easy for them to come to this food plot, that's what they're going to use. So I've actually made that right in front of here. There's an old fence. It's not a very good shaped fence, and that allows these deer to exit this food plot right in front of this stand. Well, even though the beans are starting to dry up and I have this big and beasty food plot coming up, I'm not expecting to see too many deer during this first part of October on this food plot. I'm expecting that the mature bucks, since this property has so many acorns, that they're going to be moving not very far from their bedding, browsing on these acorns. So I'm hoping that later on in the year, later October, 1st of November, they're really going to start keying on this food plot.